morning. Welcome to the August 7th, 2025 Parking, Traffic, and Safety Committee meeting. Would you please take the roll?
Mary Lou McCullen.
Here.
Jane Mitchell-Peak.
Here.
Mark Siracusa.
Here.
Erica Wygonick.
Here.
Deputy Police Chief Mike Maloney. Here. And Chief Bill McQuillan will be running late. Public Works Director Peter Rice.
Here.
Stephanie Casella, Planning Department.
Here.
And Chairman Andrew Begley.
Here. Can you please have the financial report?
Our two financial reports, one through May, and then the next one is through June, end of the fiscal year.
Any questions on the?
Money, 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 money.
So June obviously is the most important one of the year because it shows the full and complete year, and it looks like we hit 11,317,000 versus a budgeted 10,109,000. So entertain a motion to approve the financial report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So we have to talk a little bit louder, right, for the mic up here?
It seems to pick up pretty good.
It
Should be fine. It's funny though, the muscle memory, I keep leaning into the
Yeah,
microphone.
I know. I almost did this.
All right, so new business, Congress Street, proposal to eliminate 15-minute restriction on 2 parking spaces. Oh, I skipped right over it. I'm sorry, public comment. I need to drink more coffee. Yeah, please come up from one of the chairs. Just give your name and address and then speak to the issue that you are going to speak to. This is the only chance in the meeting to speak if anybody wants to speak.
Well, I'm not a chair, I'm just a resident. Is that?
Yeah, this is the time to
Like
speak.
a sitting chair.
Yeah, just because the microphone's
I'm familiar
work
with
better if
Robert
you're sitting in
Rules
a chair.
of Order, but I wasn't
Yeah.
sure how you work this. Hi, everybody. My name is Bob Gelati. I'm a resident of Lang Road, 292 Lang Road. The reason why I'm here today is we still have a chronic and dangerous speeding issue on Lang Road. Your reports that you did in 23 on speeding showed that the average speed on the road is 42 miles an hour. Average. Our speeding limit is 30 miles an hour. So we feel and I'm here alone today, my neighbors will be here next month. We feel that this needs to be addressed. The impetus for me being here, I've talked to Eric over the years, I have no visibility getting out of my driveway because of the rail there, high foliage, whatnot. But more importantly, if they were doing 30, 35, I would be able to see that car, but they're doing 50. I've been almost T-boned twice. I've had situations where I've had, and it's not generational, I've had elderly women in Cayennes pass me doing 60 when I'm doing 30 to 35. Yes, I am breaking the law there. And I've had teenagers going the other way towards Rye and Volkswagen GTIs doing the same thing and passing me, literally, because they're in a hurry. But I'm not alone as well. I've talked to Eric, I've talked to Bill as well, just yesterday. We had started a petition, which I went around the neighborhood to collect, and 4 or 5 of the residents had the same exact issue that I have. They can't see out of their driveway. And literally, we are in fear of leaving our own property. And I don't wish that upon anybody in this room, but it is a serious matter. As you know, we've had a couple fatalities over the last few years. Just recently in April, I think a driver, and I'm not sure the exact reason, but he veered. He was heading head on into one of our residents who just turned into the street. He veered off into a tree to avoid a head-on collision. He died. 3 years ago, we had a motorcyclist who was killed. Talking to my neighbors, collecting the names for this petition, they told me their own stories of city garbage collectors losing their legs a couple of years back. I know way back when, maybe more than a decade, a postal worker lost his leg as well. But the day-to-day practicality of us not being able to feel comfortable leaving our driveway is really the largest issue. The stats may not show enough fatalities over a 5, 6, 10-year period, but that's really the issue. Now, talking to Eric and then Bill, I realized that the fire department has their own responsibilities in terms of emergency vehicles getting to and getting back and from the hospital. And we understand that speed bumps and speed traps have not been, not conducive for EMT transportation. I understand what happened over at Mansfield. It's, quite frankly, I've gone over that road with the speed bump. It's too steep. I saw a Corvette have to go over it sideways to get over that road. So I understand and I appreciate the fire chief's point of view on that. I put together a petition with my neighbors, and I had 10 signatures up till Monday when I went out, before I had talked to Bill and found out the point was moot. We wanted something more mild, such as a speed table or a speed cushion, which accommodates emergency vehicles. However, because of Rye using our road, there's not a standard wheelbase, apparently, for the different vehicles. So he said that probably wouldn't work. So I'm going to work with Eric over the next month or two with my neighbors to try to get something done. Quite frankly, we are trying to make the drivers uncomfortable. That's the goal here. If they're going 45 and 50 and they feel comfortable, that's not working for us. So obstacles, I mean, we can't litter the street with potholes, I get that. But some type of impediment that makes them say, oh, we need to slow down here. Is really what we're looking at. Again, I talked to my neighbors. I have a small petition here, but it's moot because it's based on speed cushions and speed tables. So I'm asking you over the next month or two, if we come back to the table with a real proposal that would somehow slow down traffic, I'll work with Eric, that you seriously consider it. As well, I want to point out, we have 20 houses on our street in that stretch. It may be 3/4 of a mile. So it's a relatively a dense area. I know we have wetlands there, which prohibit maybe expanding our road without excessive cost. But there could be some type of action being taken, and I'll let Eric speak to that at other meetings possibly, if we come to an agreement on what would be good. That said, we have that large apartment complex too, which technically is not on Lang Road. A lot of those renters, though, are running on the street and using their bicycles. And I'm a long distance runner. I've run 3 marathons. I would not do that ever again. It's the shoulder's no shoulder at all. And as you know or don't know, it seems like there's a proposal to put 242 more units at the end of our street, which is going to create a lot more traffic, which we're not against, but more people on the street, no sidewalks, no room for pedestrians or bicycles. It's going to just create even more problems down the road. So I'm asking you to consider this, be proactive now, especially since the last death in April. We are really in fear of our lives. It's just gotten much worse. I think you paved the road a couple of years ago, which 9 times out of 10 would be a good idea. But in this case, it gives them a ticket to go faster. Eric put a radar sign right by my house. Some people brake, then speed up. Some people ignore it. They just go right through it. I've been on my John Deere tractor right on the edge of the property trying to cut the lawn. They could care less how close I am to the street. They're actually become belligerent, I think. They just feel like, hey, what are you doing here? This is my road, not yours. So that's all I have to say for today. I will try to work with the city to try to come up with a solution, but I hope that you'll consider it down the road.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks.
Anybody else like to speak? This is your one chance to speak if you want to.
Is it just like an open?
Yeah, yep. If anything on the agenda that you want to speak to, but
I didn't look at the agenda.
okay. All right, with that, there's nobody on Zoom?
Yeah, just one more thing.
Yes.
It's important. Sorry, real quick, I'll sit here to make it official. Another solution, which usually would be a viable one, is for more police surveillance. And I talked to the police department on Friday. They did write a couple tickets right in front of my house on Monday. They had a cop sitting right at the end of the street that could see the whole street. And when they are there, traffic surprisingly slows down. The issue is they can't be there all the time. They've got other calls to make. And as soon as they leave, it just picks right back up again. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. All right, with that, I'll close the public comment. And we don't have any presentations today. So for new business, number 1 is Congress Street, proposal to eliminate 15-minute restriction on 2 parking spaces between Fleet Street and Chestnut Street. And the motion would be to move to refer to city staff for review and report back at a future meeting.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And B, Hanover Street, request to eliminate the 15-minute restriction on parking spaces between High Street and Market Street. Sample motion would be to move to refer to city staff for review and report back at future meeting.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Islington Street, discussion of possible measures to address recent crashes at Jewel Court intersection.
This is, I'll speak to this. Over the last, I think it was in the month of June, there was 2 accidents at this location. It was both the same type of accident. It was a vehicle on Islington attempting to turn left onto Jewel Court, and the traffic in the left turn lane stopped to give them a break to cross traffic. But the problem is a green light on Islington, and the through lane doesn't see this what's happening, and the left turner doesn't see that there's through traffic coming. And they come across that stopped left turner, and they get T-boned by a vehicle in the through lane. This happened twice within a 1 month period. This issue has come before us in the past with a request to make a do not block the box, but that was denied because that would encourage the exact behavior that's happening here. You should not be allowing a gap here for vehicles to cross because you can't see what's coming in this other lane. When this lane is stopped, this lane is moving, so it's not a good idea to have an open box area here. So one thought I had was to put up the yellow flex posts, which can be bolted to the center line. They're very skinny, they can flex, they bend over, they pop back up when hit, and that would physically prohibit a left turn from being made from Islington onto Jewel Court. There already is a prohibition on left turns from Jewel Court onto Islington, and this would be, physically restricting that movement as well. Things to consider is that we'd still need to provide access into the Two Brothers garage at this location, so you need to be able to allow the left turns in here, or if so desired, or this could be extended further to block access to that driveway as well. But it was a thought, because there's not enough room in the middle of the street to put a physical median island, because that would require widening the roadway. We don't have the room on either side to widen. This could be done on the existing pavement without any widening of the roadway. However, it would require probably to be removed in the wintertime in order to be plowed. Otherwise, the plows would clip these off. It's something that could be tried. You may still have vehicles try to sneak around the end of it here, or through the end of it here to make illegal left turns. So this was a thought, is to try how to possibly address these left turn accidents that are happening. When we restrict a left turn like this, it does require an ordinance change to Chapter 7. So it would be something that this committee would need to approve, and then City Council for final approval if we were to make this a permanent left turn restriction coming into Jewel Court. And it would require, instead, Jewel Court does serve as access to the residential properties back here. It would force drivers to find another way into there. Most likely, usually the left turns here are people coming from Bartlett Street, making the right turn and then immediately the left. So in the future, if they couldn't make the left turn here, they would have to make a left turn probably onto Islington and then a right turn onto Albany to get back to the neighborhood, or they would likely cut through the CVS parking lot, or they would come up to the first driveway at the little Pick and Pay Plaza here, make a left turn and go through the plaza to get back to Brewery Lane. So there are consequences to shutting off this left turn here, but there is a couple of accidents that have happened here, and I got a call from a resident who's nearby and watches that intersection all the time and says there's many near misses as well as the actual accidents that have occurred. So it's a thought. I wanted to bring this to the committee to get their feedback and thoughts on it.
Eric, do we need an ordinance change just to be able to try a pilot of this? Or is I thought
I would think that would be a temporary measure we could try, just as all ordinance changes are. We put them in place for a temporary period up to a year.
Any thoughts, Mary Lou?
Well, I think it's a big problem. I think the entire complex is big. I've been to CVS many times since Rite Aid closed, and it's a mess. It's a mess at the light because people are coming from Bartlett or either direction trying to get into that larger parking lot, which is narrow, and there are cars leaving, cars coming in. The traffic has been blocked at the set of lights by people coming and going. So to me, it's a really big issue for the CVS parking lots on both sides of that business. And I think it's a CVS problem. So I don't know how this gets addressed, but I think doing that one thing is not going to help the intersection at the light.
Stephanie?
Is this an appropriate place for signage? I don't know. I mean, I know it's tricky, but just to communicate what the barriers are for.
Yeah, well, the problem is you put a sign up, but signs tend to get ignored by drivers, and you'd have to put a sign, up over here on the sidewalk, but that's not where drivers are looking at
Yeah.
the time.
Right.
You could maybe put one here on this corner saying no left turn, but again, drivers are looking at oncoming traffic, they're not paying too much attention to signs.
Sure.
We do have a sign coming out of Jewel Court that says no left turn, it's attached to the stop sign that often gets knocked down by drivers backing out of these spaces or turning.
I like the idea of a pilot, but it has to be a seasonal pilot then because of the winter of the plowing, so.
Yeah.
So it would be like May 1st, so I don't know when Peter's, snow season ends. Peter, when do you terminate plowing officially?
When it stops snowing.
June?
No, I mean, it's, typically it wraps up, that's, Mark, it's really, we have May storms
I got another
sometimes.
question for you, don't go anywhere.
We had one in April last year.
Do we have any from the accidents? Were there injuries or were they?
I don't know the details on that.
If there were injuries, they were minor or none. I can't recall off the top of my head.
Erica?
I think this is a great idea. I do think that access, the intersection is too close to the other intersection, and this is bound to happen when you have a double threat like that. I think it's a great idea to do flex posts if we can't do like a curve in the middle there, which would be the other thing I would think of. I would probably lean towards like a longer set of flex posts, maybe go all the way up to the end of the left turn lane, and I would extend it a little further so you don't have that sort of sneak around effect. I don't know what the implications are for the car repair shop across the street in terms of what I don't know if they have legal rights to certain access that we have to maintain and what sort of communication we'd need to have with them. But in terms of managing the Jewel Court proximity to the larger intersection, I think this is a very appropriate treatment. I think it'd be very reasonable to try it until we had to take it out for plowing. I think it'd be good to do a count there before we put the posts in and then do a count. I think you have a pretty recent count there, but maybe I'm wrong. And then do a count after they've been in for a month or two to see how things have shifted there. I think people would probably just go through CVS because that does have a rear access up into pretty much the same land uses. And it makes more sense at that intersection to go straight ahead. It's not great for the CVS parking lot, which is tight, but I think it would clean up some of this.
The CVS parking lot, I know there's a do not enter sign. Which direction is it?
So the traffic back on Brewery Lane cannot cut through to the signal.
So you can cut through
You
from
don't- yeah.
this side
Yeah.
through legally.
Yeah.
The only concern I have is this whole general area's a bit of a mess. And I know like sometimes I'll come up and I'll turn right and then I'll turn left there. And I worry that if we add more pressure to the railroad bridge, are we making this problem better but that problem worse? I don't know the answer to that. That's just, I'm not,
What do you mean
Generally
by
opposed to
pressure
this.
what are you referring to in terms of pressure? at the
so if we
railroad
change
bridge?
the traffic flow dynamics around here, does that make it more difficult for people to cross by the railroad bridge because there's gonna be more backup there?
There might be less because you don't have people stop to turn left into Jewel Court. I don't know, I mean, we should
Yeah, I
do
don't know the
counts
answer
to
to
just
that.
monitor.
And I think we've done counts as to how many actual left turns are turning from Islington onto Jewel Court. And I think it was maybe 20 or 30 an hour. So it's not a high volume, but it's a persistent volume. One car every couple of minutes is making that movement, holding things up and taking a risk when someone. The problem is, the drivers, if they're thinking they're being good by being courteous and allowing a gap to allow them in, but it's actually not a good, safe maneuver to be doing that.
Eric, is this anything you can model? I mean, is this, or is it just so
It can be modeled, but it's, I don't think it's really a high number. We're not talking hundreds of vehicles making this movement, so I don't think it's gonna have a significant change on the street on the street.
And what do you think of Erica's idea of extending the flex post? Because I don't want to create a situation that's worse because people are now doing it even
Yeah.
more unsafe maneuver because they're trying to cut those short, which
Yeah.
I think some people might do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the question would be, yeah, extending it further this way to limit those left turns in and out of this driveway. They do have a second access on Bartlett, the garage does, but sometimes it can be really tight. They have so many cars on this lot, it can be hard to get in and out of one of the two driveways. So we definitely would want to reach out to them and see what their thoughts are on this and check on legal rights to be able to close that driveway.
Because I know they get flatbed trucks in there, and that's a tough maneuver as is.
Yeah. I mean, we are just starting the process on the railroad bridge design, and as part of the railroad bridge redesign, we will be looking at, realigning the roadway and see what that would mean, but that's a long-term project of possibly.
And there's no monies identified for it's purely
Yeah.
study monies, it's not implementation monies.
Construction money.
Yeah, and it's actually not a city asset, it's the railroad asset.
Yeah.
So it's a very complex,
Ideally, if we could do whatever we wanted, we would move this signal over to this location, make this the four-way signal. Mary Lou?
So am I the only one who's experienced that issue at the set of lights at CVS? Because it's all the time. Every time I've gone to CVS and come into that parking lot, you can see the parking, does CVS own the parking lot?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so they own both sides. But it's a city issue at the intersection. And I was there the other day. The lights changed, going north and south, east and west. People could not get in or out of the CVS parking lot. And very few people go back up
It's a
out of the parking lot that way.
tough
So
parking
we're
lot,
gonna
but
have, so we're gonna have an issue, I think, at that intersection, at the lights, because people will be cutting through. They'll be, instead of going, obviously, onto Jewel Court, they'll come up through the CVS parking lot, and that's where the accidents will be at that point. I think it's a bigger picture, that's what I'm saying. That intersection was blocked. The past 3 times that I've been to CVS, the intersection has been blocked because people can't get in or out of the CVS parking lot. And so then it will get backed up to the railroad bridge or in either direction. I'm just making a point that I think it's a bigger picture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, ideally, you would eliminate some of these parking spaces within proximity of the intersection right here. Because these vehicles backing out and both sides, and vehicles in and out, and it gets, you basically one lane right here, and it's very tight, very congested.
ideally you line up Bartlett with Jewel Court,
Exactly, yeah.
total realignment of the intersection.
but we're getting a little far away from what we're talking about
Or
here.
if CVF ever sells, you create a straight through.
Or CVS moves to where Rite Aid was.
All right, well, we're running low on pharmacies, so let's not.
Can I,
It's private property, private businesses.
That's a joke.
can,
Anyway.
can I make a motion? To have a pilot program with 4 or how many, Erica? 6?
It's less the number and more kind of the extent. I mean, if it was up to me, I would start at the left turn lane and go probably to where it says only, right at the end of Islington Street. And I would put flex posts that whole length, but it depends on what the legal rights are of the,
I would like a motion to
refer to staff. I'd
refer
like
to staff
yeah.
with a report back after discussing with the adjacent properties.
I agree
Because that way
with
people have a chance to come and speak to it before we.
Good idea.
I moved to have staff.
Yeah.
report
Second.
back.
Were you able to catch the spirit of that?
So, Mark, do you rescind your?
Yes.
Okay, and then Erica, we're
I moved to refer to city staff for review and report back at a future meeting.
wonderful. And who seconded?
I second it.
Did, okay.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and the next is D, Islington Street. Request for rectangular rapid flashing beacon for pedestrian crossing in area of Langdon Street to Summer Street by resident. And the sample motion is moved to place on file.
It's the history.
Well, we
Yeah.
can make the motion and then discuss it and then change the motion if we feel the need.
Okay. I move to place on file.
Second.
All right, discussion? Erica?
Maybe Eric can give us a quick.
Sure. So as you know, I mean, Islington Street is under construction right now. We have not yet done the final paving and pavement striping. But this is a picture from before the work was done. We did add a crosswalk at the Brewster Street intersection. And this crosswalk will be put back when the final striping is done on the street. We got a resident request that says, well, it would be nice to have a flashing light for the pedestrians to cross somewhere in this area between Cafe Killam and Lexi's Burgers and this area. However, the only place where we will have a crosswalk is at Brewster Street. So that means, the RFB, a flashing light, would have to go where the crosswalk is at this location. In the past, when we studied the pedestrian crossings in the area, we did see that there was a need for a crosswalk here, and that's why we put one in, but we did not have the volume of pedestrians crossing that would warrant the additional action of a flashing light. So at this point, I would say we hold off. Let's finish the Islington Street project and see how pedestrian traffic has changed. We can monitor it again and see if there's enough pedestrians here to warrant a flashing light. Usually there's enough gaps in traffic that pedestrians can cross. We have improved the sidewalks on each side, so it will be better crossing and signage for the pedestrian crosswalk. It's a lot of times when we put a flashing light in places where it's not really needed, it just doesn't get used, and at $15,000 to $20,000 a pop, it's something we could use in a better location. So I'd really like to see that it's warranted before we go ahead and put one in.
So are you saying rather than place it on file, that you're going to study this further? Is that what your indication is?
By placing it on file, it's been acknowledged,
Yeah.
and we will keep an eye on it. We can do a study when after the project is finished and see how pedestrian.
So the person who requested this can come back to this committee and ask us to bring it back up again?
I
How
think
does
that
that work?
placing an item on file means that it's not.
It's not
Yeah,
dead.
we're not
It's not
rejecting
dead.
it.
Yeah, it's not
but
dead. It can be
it's
brought up.
probably not the right time to evaluate traffic patterns on Islington because of the construction.
Work in process.
So could the petitioner go to another board or committee and bring that up, or does it have to come back to us if we place it on file?
This is our purview, so they could go to the council and ask, go to public comment. But really, at this point, it's just, let's finish the project, let the dust settle, see.
I'm just asking in general.
Yeah,
what
they
happens.
could go to council directly, but in all likelihood, council would just refer it back to us.
Okay.
And they
That's the
can come
answer
back
to my
here again.
question.
They can come back here and ask again.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
So when it gets put on file, it's not dead. Not brought up.
Correct.
Yeah, and that is one of the reasons we place things on file instead of rejecting things, so that there's
Leave it
a
open.
Robert's Rule of Orders, there's a higher bar to reopen something if we reject it.
That's the answer.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Old business, Congress Street, report back on redesign project between Chestnut Street and Maplewood Avenue by DPW. Sample motion is moved to approve final design of Congress Street with removal of one lane of traffic.
Mr. Chairman, David DeFosis is here to speak to this, if there's any specific questions.
Why don't we get the motion on the floor and then let Dave speak to it, because I think there'll be questions.
Sure.
If anybody wants to make the motion.
I'll move to do what you just said.
Whatever it says, so you said, whatever it says.
No, do
Move to approve
whatever
final
you just
design
said.
of Congress Street with removal of one lane of traffic. If I can get a second, then we can open up the discussion.
I'm glad there's an engineer here because how could I figure this all out? I mean, there are several engineers in the room.
Yeah, but if Dave wants to give a overview first, we talked about this about a year ago.
Correct. And the reason we're bringing it back is because it was an informational item last time, and the group did not, the committee did not vote on it to go to council for acceptance. So we want to formalize it because we do have a bid, but I'll let Dave speak
We
to
have
it.
more than a bid. We're about to have a signed contract. So the contract is a two-part contract. The first phase is the Vaughn Mall, which will be starting September 2nd.
Mhm.
So part of the first phase is utilities infrastructure in this area. And we're at the point now that Underwood has finished the design. Design is in front of you there. And we really need to know what we're building. we're at the point that I need an answer what you want me to build, because I need to know where the structures go. So that point has come. So we just need to decide as a committee whether we're gonna pull the trigger on the 2 lanes, or if we're gonna keep the 3 lanes and keep the narrow sidewalk on the left-hand side coming up Congress Street, and maybe remove the street lights or some other mechanism. We keep going through storefront windows with tractors. It's a problem. There's not enough room there for the pedestrians that we have in town. That's a problem. So it's really, ultimately it comes down to a compromise. Are we going to accommodate the vehicular traffic that wants to move through the area? Or are we going to narrow the road down so that vehicular traffic gets reallocated naturally? That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I guess I can't remember the discussion. I know I was in favor of this design. I don't remember what the pleasure of the group was. So I guess if anybody disagrees with this plan, now would be a good time to share your concerns. Erica?
I think a 2-lane approach is totally fine. I think it's gonna work fine. And I think it's the right balance for this location, in terms of sidewalk space versus, travel lanes. I do wonder why we need those 13-foot lanes. Those seem very wide. You can see the pavement, you can see the striping underneath, and we're increasing the right turn lane by like 25%. Wow.
We had a few different issues of why we were doing that.
On the loose end.
Yeah.
Emergency.
Erica, we
Yeah.
want to make sure we could accommodate the snow load in
Yeah.
between snow removal. We thought that if we didn't have the snow, if we didn't have the lane where it was, then we literally wouldn't have room for a snowbank in there if we made the road any tighter. And I know we don't have winter as much as we used to, but we felt pretty strongly that we wanted to have that 11-foot lane if there was a 2-foot snowbank sitting there. So that's the reason for the 13 feet, is we thought that was really the narrowest that we could go down and comfortably be able to handle any situation that's going on. It is a downtown street, it has to function. It's not like it's as you know, it's not some side street that if the snowbank's there, kind of cars can go around. The reason why the right turn lane got swung out the way that it did was to accommodate the buses and the tractor trailers going around that corner, so they stopped driving over the pedestrian truncated dome pads that they've historically driven over. We feel that it's inappropriate to have tractor trailers driving over the pedestrian areas. So we slid the lane over to accommodate that movement.
Can we stripe a shoulder instead of having a 13-foot lane?
We can
Is that-
absolutely stripe an 11-foot lane with a 2-foot
Shoulder.
fog line.
Yeah.
That's not a problem, and completely able to do that.
That would be on the upper side of the print.
Both sides. I mean, I don't think we need 13-foot lanes on either side. I just think it's easy to see the right turn lane, how much wider it's getting.
Yeah, we
'cause
could
you-
absolutely do that
I
in those
think-
areas where the lanes go down to 13 feet. We could absolutely accommodate that.
I think that would be a big improvement.
So question maybe for parking director or the chief. Currently, the only downside I see to this, and I do support it, is there's a lot of people that either stop to pick up pizzas or delivery trucks. And I see we can put a loading zone where those 2 parking spaces are. If we stripe the shoulder, does that encourage people to illegally park, or are they just going to ignore that regardless?
I think they're gonna ignore it.
In my opinion, they're gonna ignore it.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to pull over and park there now.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not,
They do.
striping it wouldn't hurt, or people are just going to do what they're going
And
to do.
having that,
No offense.
and having that little bit of extra is gonna allow for vehicles to get around those people who are legally parking.
Yeah, so I guess my thought on that, and it's open for debate, was you can see that the straight left lane goes down to 13 feet right in front of number 140 there, and that we would stripe the shoulder there, and then in the area between, right around where that catch basin is shown there, and the only. And then from there back to where the 2 parking spaces are, I believe that's somewhat ambiguous. So that it doesn't look like a parking lot.
Would we have space, and I know we don't like to put unnecessary signage up, but like no standing anytime?
Yeah, we can
Because that's a lot of
we can
behavior
mount some
we're
of
gonna have
that
to
to those
change.
light poles that they're going to get shifted over. So those, you can see the light poles get shifted over about 30 inches from where they are today. we could certainly mount signage to those lights so that we don't have additional obstacles to go around with the tractors and we typically mount things to the lights just because they're there already.
They may not have to stay there permanently, but maybe the first 6 months or year.
No, they should probably stay there permanently, honestly.
And then it doesn't matter the 2 parking spaces, that could be a loading zone, that could be 2 parking spaces, that's all just paint, right?
That is paint. I think the thought is that after we built it, we might come back and do one of those flex zones where it's loading in the morning
Mhm.
and then it shifts to 15-minute spaces later in the day for pickups or whatever. And then, or whatever you guys think is most appropriate. But
15 minutes.
But, this is the layout, and then we can adjust just like Islington Street, we can adjust once we see the behaviors.
Any other, Mary Lou?
Does it make it safer for cyclists or not?
There'll be more room out there, so in my mind, I definitely think it's gonna be safer for cyclists.
I don't see a lot of cyclists coming through town, but often enough.
No, because the
That
situation that
intersection.
we have right now is pretty terrifying if you're a cyclist, right?
Exactly.
Right, so I think that there'll be more room out there, which inherently will be safer for cyclists, I think.
As a cyclist, I always hate being in a middle lane. I'd much
Mm.
rather be on a left or right lane, so I feel like this, to me, anecdotally feels safer.
Are we gonna have Sharrow signs around? I haven't seen. He laughs.
Sharrows are appropriate for this type of area because the sharrows are not appropriate for roads that have higher speeds. But roads that typically have speeds 20 miles or less, it's perfectly appropriate.
And we have them in stock if you would like them, it's fine.
And Fire Chief, this
Yes.
is,
More than willing, if staff says it's okay, then
Okay.
I don't think it's a big deal to put a couple sharrows in. Remind people that you're sharing a
Well,
You're
right.
sharing a road with everybody.
Right.
That is our intent.
and Fire Chief, this is fine for your tower trucks and stuff?
Yeah, it's not ideal, but again, I think as Dave spoke about, we're talking about compromise here. We're not normally responding through Market Square. We want to stay away from high traffic and pedestrian areas anyway. So for the amount of times that we envision having to use this as a response route, it would work.
Any other comments?
Point out that we've, in effect, tried this as a trial basis when we had outdoor dining in the street, so we've seen that 2 lanes does work.
So I do want to acknowledge that the drawing set shown here does include adjustments up into Market Square, correct, Eric?
The next sheet shows the extent of this.
But the implementation, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, is only to Fleet Street at this point. It's
I would correct that into the Fleet Street general intersection area. There's
This is Fleet here.
as I started saying, the contract that we are about to be under contract with goes into Congress Street, and it's really the Fleet Street project, Phase 2A. So
so
Fleet
this is-
Street's been broken up into 4 spots, and to make the utility infrastructure work, we have to go into the Fleet Street intersection to set up the next project in this area, which will be Fleet Street. So we are gonna do some work in there too.
My point to clarify was just to make sure people weren't confused that this is not the beginning of the implementation of the Market Square program.
Correct.
That this is purely this section.
Okay, I was gonna ask that.
It's Fleet Street up to Maplewood, generally speaking. As far as pavement markings and curb alignments, yes.
All right, Mark?
How does Dave's input impact this sample motion to move approval final? Eric? Hey, Peter, his input have anything to do with the sample motion?
I think the sample motion is what we were just talking about. Yeah,
Can
it's
I
everything we
make a
just talked
friendly
about.
amendment?
I didn't make a motion, I just asked a
Somebody
question.
made a motion.
Yeah.
We're
Someone
talking
made it?
about it.
Peter
Peter made a
made
motion.
it.
Can I make a friendly
sorry.
amendment, which is move to approve final design of Congress Street with removal of 1 lane of traffic with striping plan to be finalized with staff input at a later date or something like that? Because there's,
Sure, and
you have shoulders
I mean,
and
you
what
could be
the
more,
parking
you could be
is.
more pointed, you could say, with 11-foot travel lanes and fog lines to reflect that.
Why don't we do that, because that gets it to council faster?
It's gonna do it.
We don't want it to come back here just
Okay,
to
great.
Dave's timeline, I think.
With 11-foot travel lanes delineated by a fog line or 2-foot shoulders. I don't know what's the best way to say that, but, and then we'll figure out the parking area at a later date. Is that, I don't know, do we need
I
to?
think the parking, as Dave described, which is morning loading zone, afternoon, so flexible parking to allow for morning loading zone and afternoon 15-minute parking. Because I don't think which I know Ben doesn't like 15-minute parking, I understand, but it's really intended for the restaurant pickup.
They're gonna use it for that purpose anyway, so
Right.
in this case, I wouldn't object to it.
And I love whenever we can do the loading zone slash,
Sure.
because locals know that.
Yeah, Sheriff?
I'm okay with Sharrow's, but I guess that was part of the thing where I don't know that we're the right people to.
So the,
Sharrow's make a lot of sense, I think, but I don't have all the data, so
Yeah, I mean, Sharrow's could be done, I mean, they're not, just in the through lane or
and Sharrow's as staff deems necessary,
yeah.
as staff deems appropriate.
Yeah, I like that better.
all right, so the amended motion would be, or the amendment that is friendly is 11-foot lanes with 2-foot fog lines.
2-foot
And-
shoulders.
Sorry, 2-foot shoulders
Massive fog lines.
and Sharrow's if possible,
Sharrow's as appropriate.
as appropriate.
As deemed appropriate.
Would you like me to read it back?
Would you like to read it back?
It's the motion on the floor, move to approve the final design of Congress Street with removal of 1 lane of traffic with 11-foot travel lanes delineated by 2-foot painted lines designating the shoulder with future planned flexible parking and Sharrow's as staff deems appropriate.
I think the part where you say 2-foot lines, it's not 2-foot lines, it's a line at 2 feet.
A line.
You could even leave, I mean,
2-foot shoulder.
you could
is-
even leave that out and just say delineated by fog lines, because it's gonna vary, it's gonna be
Yeah.
2 feet, 3
11-foot
feet, it's
travel
gonna
lanes
be,
is probably more appropriate.
Yeah.
right, delineated by fog
Fog
lines.
lines, but not 2-foot fog lines.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Good idea.
And that intersection looks wonderful, the
Doesn't always
Congress Islington one.
Appreciate it.
When I walk in the morning,
Thanks,
my wife
Dave.
comments on it all the time.
Great.
Have a good day.
It's on rec board for 40. I asked every
Old
mayor,
business,
every-
Porter Street,
She goes, "Just-
report back on request to consider closing the section between Church Street and Pleasant Street to vehicular traffic by resident and adjacent property owner. Sample motion moved to place on file.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Did we get any sort of update, or is there,
So this
how did
was,
we come to this decision?
We could speak to that, Dave. I mean, in discussion with the emergency services, as well as future planned projects in Market Square, we did not deem it appropriate at this time to shut that short section of roadway. It's important flexibility when we have events, and it's really critical for emergency access. So for that reason, we didn't feel it's appropriate at this time to recommend closing it.
Sounds great.
and if you saw the Market Square plan that we just approved, it does, that whole area is gonna get potentially reconfigured. So reconfiguring a small section just prior to doing the whole section probably isn't the right sequence, even if we did wanna do it.
Correct. This does not preclude future action.
Totally fine. Just placed on file.
Place on file.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, informational, the police monthly accident report, please, chief.
We have 2 months this month. We have May and June. So for May, we had a total of 81 crashes. 44 were reportable. We had 1 crash involving a vehicle and a pedestrian. In June, we had a total of 98 crashes. 52 of the 98 were reportable. No instances of crashes involving pedestrians and 2 instances of crashes involving bicycles.
That's a big jump.
Active.
Yeah, busy city, very busy city for everybody.
It rained pretty much every day in June, I think, too. That probably doesn't help. Jane?
I have a question. Do we have any more information about the bicycle accidents in June? I noticed that it didn't look like there were any bicycle accidents in June for 2024 or 2023. So I'm just curious, like year over year, if we're concerned about the uptick.
Am I concerned about the uptick? Both involved e-bikes. One occurred on State Street, one occurred in the parking lot of the high school. One was the e-bike rider's fault. The other was ambiguous as to who was at fault, whether it was the vehicle or the e-bike. Witnesses and parties on scene blamed each other, so it's tough to determine that one. No injuries in either. There was property damage.
Mary Lou?
I just wanted an update on the work that the department is doing with the electric scooters, bicycles, dirt bikes.
Sure. Yeah, so we're close to booking our informational night at the library to present to the public and have a question and answer period on e-bike related laws, frequently asked questions and so forth. We've really ramped up the e-bike enforcement. In the last 2 months, we've had probably 20 to 25 contacts, stops, if you will, of e-bike riders. And when I say e-bike, what we're stopping are technically dirt bikes. They're not classified as e-bikes. So we've had follow-up with the area businesses that sell e-bikes and electric dirt bikes. The message has definitely gotten out to the younger generation that we're stopping kids, we're taking them home, we're educating parents. And the businesses in the e-bike related community is talking about it as well. Like the police are out there. So that was our intent. Unfortunately, we had 2 crashes in June, so it didn't help in that sense, but we're absolutely getting the word out that we're paying more attention now, and the e-bikes that are technically classified as OCEVs, which is an out-of-class electric vehicle, are not to be ridden on roadways. So it's a way to look at it. If the bike doesn't have pedals and it has pegs, it's more than likely classified as an OHRV and not a bicycle.
I saw 2 on the bypass, 2 guys with dirt bikes.
Yeah. So we're definitely getting the word out, and they're here a lot. It spreads fast with the younger community that we're out there making these stops.
So Chief, if you're on a level 1, 2, or 3 bike that's meets whatever those requirements are, that's okay on the roads.
As long as you follow the rules of the road as a bicyclist, yeah.
If it exceeds the level 3, or you take a level 3 on the bike path, that's when you're making a.
Yep. So class 1, 2, and 3 obviously are legal. Anything that's over 750 watts or in excess of 26 miles an hour is an OCEV. And for example, to put it in perspective, anything over 750 watts exceeds the state standards for an electric bike. When I was looking at some of these bikes that are riding on the street, 36,000 watts. So that kind of gives you an idea of
Or flying.
how far they're exceeding the bicycle requirements.
So it's
29,000, 36,000 watts.
It's similar to like the difference between a moped and a motorcycle in a way. Like if you're below the wattage, it's like being below 50
Right, it's-
cc's.
Yeah, wattage and miles per hour.
Chief, where's the liability with these retail distributors on that? They're selling these products to a state that has certain RSAs.
An attorney would probably be better suited to answer that. The liability is on who's riding it.
It was just
the
cuff
Motorbikes
question.
Plus, sells dirt bikes. They sell the same thing.
Yeah.
You can't ride a dirt bike on a city street. So, I don't think
It's like
there's a lot of
fireworks.
liability on the businesses. I think there's an educational piece on
Just-
behalf of the businesses.
Yeah,
That-
you're not a lawyer, but are you not legal? But I was just an off the cuff question.
So they can't ride the dirt, excuse me,
Jane?
sorry.
Sorry, I have another question. Did you share details about the one pedestrian accident in May, like location,
In
fatality?
a parking lot,
Oh, parking lot.
injuries,
Okay,
2 people injured.
okay. Thank you.
Mary Lou?
So I was just gonna say the dirt bikes, you had said, told me before, can't be ridden on the street,
Correct,
sidewalks,
correct.
or the rail trail.
Correct. Yep. We're directing people to New Hampshire OHRV website, Fish and Game Trail System of New Hampshire. Same people, same places where people ride snowmobiles and dirt bikes, you can ride those.
Right.
There's a pretty good resources online of maps and trails and stuff where you can do that.
And then a quick question on the number of vehicular accidents that have occurred. Where? Everywhere?
Yeah, they're
Rotary?
all over. I mean, if when you look at a heat map of where they're happening, kind of centered around the downtown center of the city, but we're not seeing any trends outside the normal as far as locations. But certainly in the summer months, everything picks up a little bit. So
It's volume.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report. And miscellaneous?
Just to reiterate the e-bike issue, it's not that often people come up to me and start telling me about problems they are worried about in the city, but a lot of different people have brought this up. And I think a lot of people in the community are concerned for the well-being of the riders. They're concerned that they're gonna hit, some of the behavior is pretty reckless, so people are worried that they're gonna hit somebody because they're driving out into them without stopping at nothing different than what we've talked about at prior meetings, but I've been really struck by how many people are really worried about this, so it's good to hear that we're making some progress.
I'm just thinking in my head, would it make sense for this committee or just me to reach out maybe to the city manager to ask the schools if they have
Do an
everything they
do
need?
an educational
Yeah, meaning
thing.
particularly the middle school and
So
elementary
we're
schools.
incorporating, if I may. So we're incorporating the schools in our public information night on this.
Okay, perfect.
So through Infinite Campus, through the school email, that's our really kind of our target audience. So kids,
It's effectively already done then.
yeah,
Perfect.
We could reach out to Sabre too, where they do
Already have.
educational things
they're
that,
on the team.
yeah,
Yep, we've
Yep.
already met with them.
awesome.
That's great. All right, so miscellaneous. I have one. Kind of to our speaker today, talking about Lang Street. I know there's still a lot of concern with Broad Street, and we haven't really come up with a good solution. But we were going to put some crosswalks down, I believe. Did those get done, or are those?
There's a crosswalk now at the end of Broad at South Street.
Okay.
Across there.
So as far as we know, there's no more future plans for Broad Street at this time.
No, we've done.
All the paint is down.
Yeah, the short-term signs and lines have been done.
Okay. All right, and we'll put Lang on future September's meeting if you guys have enough time to get something together. Okay. All right, with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.